When 11-year-old Amara offers her last plate of food to a starving biker, she unknowingly stirs the ashes of an old brotherhood. Ryder Cole, once feared on every highway, takes her kindness as a second chance at life. By dawn, the thunder of 2,000 bikes shakes her street. Not in anger, but in gratitude. This is a story about how feeding one hungry soul can feed an entire brotherhood back to grace, and how compassion travels faster than engines ever could. The day began like most others in the cracked town of Maple Hollow, with a hum of broken streetlights and the smell of rusted rain seeping through thin window glass. Inside a peeling blue house at the end of Birch Street, Amara Lewis pressed her hand against an empty lunchbox and sighed. The metal was cold, hollow, and echoed like her stomach. Her mother, Evelyn, stood by the stove with a towel slung over her shoulder, stirring a pot that was more memory than meal. "It's not much, baby," she whispered, voice low, thick with apology. "But it's something." Amara nodded. She was used to something. Most days it was enough. She reached for a small chip plate from the counter, the last one clean, and began laying out what little they had left. 2 biscuits, half a piece of fried chicken, and beans that had been reheated twice. Outside, the sound of wind pushed through thin walls. The house creaked like it had secrets too tired to keep. Evelyn smiled faintly, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. "You've got your daddy's heart," she murmured. "He'd give away his last bite to someone who needed it more." Amara looked down at the plate. "Then I guess I got honest." Her mother laughed softly, half love, half pain. "Lord help me, you did." 2 miles away, on the edge of town where the gas station lights flickered like dying stars, Ryder Cole crouched beside a Harley that hadn't run right in months. His knuckles were split from the road, his lips dry, his eyes sunken from too many nights without food or peace. He'd been riding for years, away from debts, graves, and a name that used to mean something. Ryder Cole, the man who led the iron serpents through hell and back, now just a ghost on 2 wheels. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled photo, an old one, edges burned from a bar fire long ago. A little boy stood beside him in that photo once, before the crash, before the patch. The rumble in his stomach pulled him back to now. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. The diner had closed early. The church pantry turned him away, and pride had chained his hands from begging. He spat the dust from his mouth and muttered to no one, "Guess this is what I earned." His Harley sputtered once, then went silent, out of gas like him. He slumped against the seat, eyes half shut. If sleep came, maybe hunger wouldn't. But through the haze, he caught movement across the street. A girl, barefoot, small, carrying a plate like it was treasure. Amara hesitated at the curb, heart fluttering like the napkin in her hand. The man looked like trouble, tattoos, scars, eyes that could have been kind once. Her mother's voice whispered in her head, "Kindness don't wait for comfort." So she stepped forward. The gravel bit her feet as she crossed the road, plate trembling in her hands. When she reached him, he opened one eye and frowned. "You lost, kid." She shook her head. "You look hungry, sir." He laughed, a dry sound like rust scraping metal. "Ain't your problem, sweetheart." Amara didn't move. "It's okay. Mama says food don't belong to one person. It belongs to whoever's hungriest." He blinked. For a long second, he just stared. At her shoes too small for her feet, her eyes too big for this world, and the little plate she held out like an offering to a king. When he reached for it, his fingers brushed hers. They were rough, warm, trembling. He took the plate, his voice catching low. "You shouldn't give this to me." She smiled softly. "Then don't think of it as giving. Think of it as sharing." The smell of fried chicken and beans hit him like memory. He swallowed hard. "Thank you, kid," he muttered, staring at the plate as if it was holy. "Before we dive deeper in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts." Amara just nodded and turned back toward home. Behind her, the sound of forks scraping against tin was the sound of a man remembering how to live. Ryder sat there a long time after the little girl's footsteps faded into the hum of the highway. The plate was empty except for crumbs and a thin smear of beans, but something else stuck to him. Something he hadn't felt since the sun was alive. Warmth. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, staring at the empty road where she'd disappeared. Kid's gonna get herself in trouble one day, he muttered, but the words broke halfway through his throat. His chest hurt. The kind of hurt that doesn't come from hunger or bruises. It comes from being seen when you don't deserve to be. He stood, joints cracking, and looked at the rusted sign above the gas station. The fluorescent letters buzzed weakly. Open 24 hours. He almost laughed. If only hearts worked that way. He reached for the battered phone in his vest. The same phone he hadn't turned on in months. The one full of names he'd sworn never to call again. For a moment, he hovered over the power button, thumb trembling. Then he pressed it. The screen flickered to life, pale blue light cutting through the night. It buzzed with messages. Old, unread, angry, forgiving, forgotten. He ignored them all and scrolled until he found one name. Diesel. He hesitated, exhaled smoke from a cigarette that had burned too long, and hit call. Yo! A gravelly voice answered on the third ring. Who's this? Ryder closed his eyes. It's me. There was silence, then a low laugh, the kind that carries both disbelief and relief. Cole? You breathing, brother? Barely. What happened? Thought you fell off the edge of the map. I did. He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat, till a little girl fed me. Diesel went quiet. What? Yeah. Ryder rubbed the back of his neck. Tiny thing, barefoot, gave me her last damn meal, like I was some lost dog. You eat it, every crumb. Another pause. So, why you calling? Ryder looked at the sky, at the stars drowned by neon and exhaust. She made me remember what we used to ride for. Before the noise, before the fights. Thought, maybe it's time I paid something forward. Diesel exhaled a low whistle. You serious? Serious as it gets. Where you at? Maple Hollow. Birch Street. Diesel chuckled. That place still standing? Barely. Like me. I'll make some calls. Ryder hesitated. Diesel, don't. But it was too late. The line clicked. Back on Birch Street, Amara was washing the same plate she'd given away hours ago. Her mother had smiled when she told her what she'd done, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Baby, you can't trust everyone, Evelyn said softly, kneeling beside her at the sink. Not everyone's good. I know, Mama. You don't. Not yet. The world ain't always kind. Amara nodded, her hands still in the soapy water. But maybe it could be if we tried first. Evelyn sighed. You sound like your daddy again. That's not a bad thing, is it? Evelyn didn't answer. She just kissed the back of her daughter's head and whispered, Just be careful who you feed, my heart. That night, Ryder sat in the cab of his truck, engine off, phone in his lap. The air smelled like gasoline and ghost stories. One message blinked on his screen. Diesel told the boys. Word spreading. Ryder stared at it a long time, thumb hovering over the reply. He thought of Amara's face, the soft way she'd said, You look hungry, sir. How long had it been since anyone called him sir? He typed back, Don't make it a circus, brother. Seconds later, another message came through. Diesel, no promises. You lit the fuse. Somewhere across the country, in bars and garages, old phones buzzed on grimy tables. Men with scars and road maps tattooed into their skin lifted their heads. A brother they thought gone was calling. And for the first time in years, the engines of redemption began to warm. The next morning crawled in gray and cold. A low mist hung over Maple Hollow, softening the outlines of houses that hadn't seen pain in years. Amara sat by the window, tracing circles on the fog glass. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, then silence. Her mother moved around the kitchen, making noise just to fill the air. The clatter of a pot, the scrape of a chair. You still thinking about him? Evelyn asked without turning. Amara didn't answer. Evelyn dried her hands on a towel. Baby, sometimes you do a good thing and it ends there. You can't go chasing after it. I wasn't, Amara said quietly. Just wondering if he's okay. Evelyn sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from worry too heavy to name. Men like that, they survive. That's what they do. She crossed the window and looked out with her daughter. The sky was the color of old steel. You just focus on school. I'll handle the rest. Amara nodded, but the promise tasted thin. Across town, Ryder sat in his truck outside a laundromat, watching the washer spin through the windshield. Inside, a pair of jeans and a ragged shirt floated in circles. His reflection stared back at him, eyes ringed with exhaustion, stubble gray with road dust. He'd slept 3 hours, maybe less. The sound of the engines in his dreams wouldn't stop. The phantom roar of brothers he hadn't seen in a decade. He pulled his phone from the dash and scrolled through the messages again. Diesel, you sure about this? Chains. Heard about the kid. Respect. Hawk. Some of the boys want to roll out. Ryder rubbed his forehead. No, not like that, he muttered. Not a parade. He typed a message, erased it, typed again. Forget it. Tell them to stay home. No reply came. Just the quiet whine of the washer and the low groan of the wind outside. He turned off the phone, dropped it on the seat, and leaned back. He should have known better. Once word started moving through those old bars and garages, you couldn't stop it. They weren't just men. They were a code, a memory of the only family that ever held. And he just called them back to life. That night, Evelyn double-checked the door lock twice. She didn't say why, and Amara didn't ask. They ate quietly, the sound of the cutlery louder than their voices. After dinner, Amara fetched her mother's jacket from the chair. He didn't look bad, Mama, she said softly. Just tired. Evelyn stopped in the doorway, her back still to her daughter. Tired can still be dangerous. She turned, eyes weary but sharp. There are people out there who see kindness as weakness. You don't know what a man like that might bring to our door. Amara bit her lip. Maybe something good. Evelyn's voice softened. Maybe, but I've lived long enough to wait and see before I believe. Far out on the highway, rain began to fall. Ryder pulled a truck under a bridge and watched drops beat across the windshield. The world outside blurred into streaks of red and white lights. He lit a cigarette and stared at the ember. He thought of the girl again. Her eyes, steady and sure, offering him food without fear. He'd seen men kill for less kindness. He flicked the cigarette out the window, rain hissing it dead. Maybe Diesel was right. Maybe the boys showing up wasn't the worst thing. Maybe they'd see her, see what he saw, a spark of something worth guarding. Then another thought crept in. What if they don't? What if they bring their ghost with them? He gripped the wheel until his knuckles whitened. For the first time in years, Ryder felt fear, not for himself, but for someone else. Back in Maple Hollow, thunder rolled. Amara lay awake listening to the rumble, wondering if it was storm or engine. She couldn't tell what she wanted it to be. She turned toward the window, the street lamp's weak glow slipping through the blinds. "Good night, Mr. Biker," she whispered, "wherever you are." Out on the highway, Ryder whispered to no one, "Good night, kid." The rain kept falling, steady, quiet, and somewhere between them both, the world began to tilt toward what was coming. 2 days of steady rain left Maple Hollow glazed and silver. Puddles pooled in the potholes, and the smell of wet earth hung thick as smoke. The diner where Evelyn worked stayed half empty, its neon sign humming through the drizzle. Inside, Amara sat in the corner booth with her homework spread across the table, the paper curling in the damp air. She watched her mother move from counter to counter, tired but smiling, the way people do when the smile's all that keeps them upright. The bell above the door jingled. A man stepped in, leather jacket dripping, boots tracking a line of mud across the tiles. Evelyn looked up. The smile faltered. Ryder Cole. He stood awkwardly at the threshold, helmet in one hand, rain running down his beard. He looked smaller without the bike beneath him. Just another man searching for something to hold on to. Evelyn wiped her hands on a rag. "We don't want trouble." Ryder shook his head. "Neither do I, ma'am." His voice was rough, polite, almost shy. "Just needed a meal and a word." Her eyes narrowed. "What word?" "Thank you." He glanced toward the corner booth. Amara's pencil froze mid-sentence. "You," she breathed, half smile breaking through surprise. "You found food. Ryder nodded. Because you gave it first. Evelyn crossed her arms. Sit, eat, then go. That's all. He obeyed, sliding into a booth near the window. When the plate came, scrambled eggs, toast, burned at the edges, he bowed his head before touching the fork. It startled Evelyn. She hadn't seen many men that big praise so quietly. Amara leaned over the table between them. Was your bike okay? Runs better now. Ryder said, sometimes all a machine needs is a reason to keep moving. That's what Mama says about people. Amara answered. Evelyn tried not to smile, but the corners of her mouth betrayed her. Finish your homework, child. Outside, a police cruiser rolled by slow, its reflection flashing across the window glass. Ryder's eyes followed it until the lights disappeared. He knew the look that officer gave him, the look that asked which crime had brought him back. Evelyn noticed. They watching you? He hesitated. They watch everybody who looks like me. Silence stretched. Only the sound of rain filled it. Finally, Evelyn poured coffee into his cup. You eat. Then you leave this town peaceful. He met her gaze. I owe your girl more than a plate. I won't stay long, but I'm not leaving things unfinished. What things? Respect, he said simply, for what she did. Amara whispered, you don't have to. I do, Ryder interrupted gently. Some debts don't get ignored. The words hung between them like thunder that hadn't yet broken. Evelyn studied him, weighing the truth in his face. The tired eyes, the scars, the quiet restraint. Then she nodded once. Eat slow. It's warm inside at least. When the diner closed, the rain had stopped. Evelyn locked up, Amara holding her hand as they stepped outside. Ryder was still there, waiting beneath the awning, jacket zipped, engine idling nearby. He reached into his pocket and set something on the stoop, a folded napkin wrapped around a silver dollar. For her dreams, he said. Tell her to keep feeding good things. Evelyn frowned. You can't buy gratitude. Wasn't trying to. Just leaving a marker. He turned toward his bike. Mr. Ryder? Amara called. He paused. She held up the coin he'd given. You sure? He smiled, rain glinting in his beard. Kid, I've never been more sure of anything. The bike growled to life, tires spitting water as he rolled into the street. Amara waved until the taillight disappeared into fog. Evelyn stood beside her, the coin warm in her palm now. She didn't speak, but her expression softened, the first crack in her armor since her husband died. Back his truck outside town, Ryder checked his phone. Dozens of missed calls. One new message from Diesel. They're coming, brother. All of them. Ryder exhaled hard, head dropping against the seat. Too fast, he whispered. Not like this. But the engines were already moving, carried by a promise he couldn't unmake. Night bled slowly into Maple Hollow. The rain clouds thinned, leaving the streets slick and glinting under broken streetlights. Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed, turning the silver dollar in her fingers, the soft rasp of metal against skin keeping her awake. In the next room, Amara slept curled beneath a patchwork quilt, breathing slow, untroubled. Evelyn traced the coin's worn edge and whispered into the dark, people don't give up silver for nothing. She slipped it into her nightstand drawer beside an old photograph, her husband in army fatigues, smiling wide before the world hardened around him. He'd been gone 6 years now, a delivery route, a drunk driver, a sudden absence that left more questions than answers. Since then, Evelyn had built her walls brick by brick. No strangers, no debts, no risks. It was the only way to keep her daughter safe. Miles away, Ryder sat at a truck stop, staring at a plate of untouched fries. The diner's fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Around him, voices drifted, drivers trading jokes, an old song spilling from a jukebox. He heard none of it. His mind was still on the little girl and the mother's guarded eyes. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a photograph folded and refolded until the creases cut through faces. A woman and a boy. His wife Lena and their son Mason. Gone 8 years now. The wreck had been his fault. Not the way the cops said no whiskey, no drugs, but a fight on the highway with another club. He'd sworn to protect his own, and that meant riding into fire without thinking who might be in the lane behind him. One flash of chrome, one scream of brakes, and everything he loved went off the road. He buried them both and climbed back on the bike, because stopping meant dying too. The club gave him purpose until it didn't. Loyalty turned into violence, and guilt turned him hollow. He'd left them all behind, telling himself redemption was for better men, until a barefoot girl handed him food like forgiveness on a plate. Ryder rubbed his thumb over the picture, the grease from his hands smearing what was left of his wife's smile. "I didn't deserve it then," he muttered, "but maybe I can earn it now." He pocketed the photo and reached for his phone. The messages kept coming. Chains were rolling east. Diesel, 2 days out. Hawk, got 20 with me. He clenched the phone. He'd meant to repay kindness, not bring a storm to a child's porch. But Brotherhood never asked permission. Once the call was made, the road answered. Morning came pale and heavy. Evelyn stood on the porch sipping coffee from a chipped mug, eyes drawn to the long stretch of road that curved out of town. She couldn't shake the feeling something was moving out there. Something large. Ryder's truck pulled up quietly, tires crunching over gravel. He stepped out, hat in hand. "Ma'am." She didn't smile. "You said you were leaving." "I am. But first you ought to know what's coming." Her shoulders stiffened. "If it's trouble, you can keep it." He shook his head. "It's the opposite, though it might not look that way at first." Evelyn studied him, wary. "Speak plain." He told her everything about the call, the messages, the brothers scattered across the country, about how a single act of mercy had lit a fuse he couldn't snuff out. "They're not bad men," he said softly. "Just men who forgot what good looked like until your girl reminded them." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "You're saying 2,000 bikers are coming here?" Ryder nodded once. Her fingers tightened on the mug until the handle cracked. "Do you have any idea what that'll look like to this town?" "Yeah," he said. "That's what scares me." For a long moment they just stood there, her fear and his regret meeting in the damp air between them. Then Evelyn exhaled and looked toward the window where Amara's small face peeked through the curtain, half curious, half hopeful. Evelyn whispered, "If they come, they better mean no harm." Ryder's voice dropped to a vow. "They won't, not while I'm breathing." That night, as he drove out of Maple Hollow, the horizon ahead of him glowed faintly, distant headlamps moving in formation, like a ribbon of light rolling through the dark. The Brotherhood was already on the road. And back in the little blue house, the silver dollar on the nightstand gleamed once under the lamplight. Catching Evelyn's eye, she turned it over and found, etched faintly into the metal, a single word scratched by hand. Hope. The next day dawned bright for the first time in a week. The rain had washed the dust off Maple Hollow, and the air smelled new, like wet cedar and faint sunlight. Evelyn opened the diner early, the door chime echoing across the quiet street. She wasn't expecting company. Yet when she turned from the counter, Ryder was already there, standing by the window, hair still damp from a morning shower, hands tucked respectfully in his jacket pockets. "You again," she said, fighting the urge to smile. "Guess so," he replied. "Didn't want to leave without fixing what I started." She folded her arms. 2,000 men on bikes isn't something you fix. It's something you pray you survive. Ryder chuckled softly. "Then maybe you should teach me how to pray." That earned him a look, half glare, half surprise. But she didn't tell him to leave. Amara burst into the back door, school bag bouncing against her side. "Mama, Mr. Ryder's back." Evelyn sighed. "I can see that." Amara ran up to him, her grin bright as the morning sun. "You came." "I said I'd see you again, didn't I?" Ryder knelt, meeting her eyes. "You keeping out of trouble?" She giggled. "Mostly. Mama says I talk too much." He smiled. "That's not trouble. That's how you change the world." Evelyn rolled her eyes. "You encouraging her to talk back to me now?" "Just saying," he said lightly, "sometimes the world needs loud hearts." It was the first time Evelyn laughed, really laughed, since he'd met her. The sound cracked the air like warmth after a long winter. They spent the afternoon fixing the diner's back porch, where the boards had warped from rain. "You're still here," That means you felt something. Subscribe and stay with us. We have many more beautiful stories to share. Ryder worked quietly, sleeves rolled up, while Amara handed him nails one by one like it was the most important job on earth. You build things often? She asked. Used to, he said, hammer pausing mid-swing. Built my boy a treehouse once. You have a son? Had, he said softly. Amara's hand froze around the next nail. Oh. Ryder looked up and smiled gently. It's all right, kid. Life breaks things sometimes. Doesn't mean you stop building. Amara nodded slowly, then handed him a nail. Then let's finish this one. From the porch doorway, Evelyn watched them work, her daughter chatting, Ryder listening with a patient calm that didn't quite match his rugged frame. Something in him reminded her of her late husband. The quiet steadiness, the way his presence filled a room without taking it over. When the last board was set, Amara clapped her hands. We did it. Ryder wiped sweat from his brow and smiled. We sure did. Evelyn stepped forward, offering him a glass of lemonade. You didn't have to fix this. He took it, nodded. Maybe not, but it felt right. She hesitated, then sat beside him on the porch step. You really think those men of yours won't cause trouble? I don't know, he said honestly, but I believe they'll remember why they're coming. Because of her? Evelyn asked, glancing at her daughter chasing sunlight across the yard. Ryder followed her gaze. Because of her, and because of what she reminded us we'd lost. For a while, they sat in silence, watching the girl laugh. The world felt still, peaceful, fragile. That evening, as twilight draped over the town, Ryder helped close up the diner. He reached for his keys, hesitated, then looked at Evelyn. If things get noisy tomorrow, you stay inside, all right? Tomorrow? She asked, brow furrowing. They're that close. He nodded. They'll be here by sunrise. Evelyn's throat tightened. And then what? He looked at her, eyes tired but kind. Then maybe this town gets to see what kindness can do. She held his gaze a moment too long before saying quietly, You don't scare me, Ryder, but what follows you might. He nodded. That's fair. As he stepped toward the door, Amara ran up and hugged him around the waist. He froze, then laid a gentle hand on her head. See you tomorrow? She asked. He smiled faintly. Yeah, kid, tomorrow. When he left, Evelyn stood at the door long after the sound of his truck faded, one hand on her chest like she was trying to steady something that had started beating again. It began before dawn, a sound like thunder rolling low across the horizon. Evelyn stirred first, half dreaming, half aware. The rumble grew louder, closer, until the window panes rattled in their frames. Amar was already at the window, eyes wide with wonder. Mama, are those motorcycles? The sound multiplied, 1,000 engines swelling together until the air itself seemed to vibrate. Evelyn pulled her daughter back from the glass. Get away from there. She stepped onto the porch. The street shimmered with morning mist and exhaust. Then, out of the fog, headlights appeared, dozens, then hundreds, pouring into Maple Hollow like a tide of steel and chrome. Men in black leather filled the road, their vests stitched with symbols that glowed in the early light. Angels across, Iron Faith, Hell's Keepers, fragment of old names, old loyalties. At the front of the procession, Ryder's Harley led the way, his face grim but calm. He parked at the edge of the diner lot. Engines still roaring behind him. The noise shook the windows, drew faces at doorways, and set car alarms screaming down the block. Evelyn stormed down the steps. You said they bring peace. Ryder removed his helmet, eyes shadowed. I did, and they will. Just let me. They're scaring people, she snapped. My customers, my daughter. Evelyn, he said softly, look closer. She turned. Among the swarm of leather and tattoos, something strange was happening. Men were unloading boxes, groceries, bags of clothes, tools. One laid a stack of lumber by the church fence. Another carried a cooler of bottled water to a neighbor's porch. A small banner flapped from a bike near the front. For the girl who fed hope. Evelyn blinked, unsure she believed what she was seeing. Amara stepped outside, barefoot again, the silver dollar tied to a string around her neck. "Mama, they came for us?" Ryder knelt beside her. "They came because of you." But before the warmth could settle, a shout broke through the crowd. A sheriff's cruiser skidded to a stop at the end of the street, lights flashing red against the chrome. Deputies spilled out, hands on their holsters. "This is a public disturbance," one barked. "Y'all need to clear out." The bikers froze, tension rising like heat off asphalt. Diesel, a mountain of a man with a beard down his chest, stepped forward. "We ain't here for trouble, officer. We're here for Kid." "Kid?" the deputy sneered. "That some kind of joke?" He shoved Diesel back. The move was small, but the sound it made, boots scraping pavement, the clatter of a chain hitting the ground, snapped a fragile piece in half. Engines revved. Voices rose. Ryder rushed forward, shouting, "Stand down!" Nobody moves. But in the confusion, Evelyn saw what the deputies didn't. Amara had run forward into the street, clutching the silver dollar. "Stop!" she cried, her voice thin against the roar. "Stop fighting. He's not bad." Every engine cut out at once. Silence slammed down, heavy and electric. A single bird called somewhere in the trees. Ryder moved slowly, hands raised, walking toward her. "Easy, kid. Step back." One deputy reached for her arm. Too fast, too rough. And that was all it took. Diesel grabbed his wrist. Another biker pushed forward. The crowd surged. Evelyn screamed. Ryder spun, shoving Amara behind him as chaos erupted. Shouts, boots, the crackle of a radio calling for backup. For a few terrible seconds, Maple Hollow turned into noise and dust and fear. Then, with a voice raw from shouting, Ryder bellowed, "Enough!" The sound tore through the mob. Engines cut, fists dropped. Even the deputies froze. Ryder's chest heaved as he looked from face to face. "You think this is what she fed me for? You think this is how we honor her?" Silence. He turned to the officers. "We came to help. Look at what we brought." Groceries, lumber, clothes, all scattered across the street. The evidence of good drowned in misunderstanding. Finally, one deputy lowered his gun. "What is this?" Evelyn stepped forward, voice trembling but steady. "This is what kindness looks like, Sheriff. You just never saw it wear leather before." The crowd slowly began to breathe again. Diesel nodded toward Ryder. "You done preaching, brother?" Ryder gave a tired smile. "Not yet. We got work to do." That evening, the news would twist into spectacle. Biker gang floods town. But in Maple Hollow, something else happened. Bikers fixing roofs, repainting walls, patching potholes, cooking for neighbors who'd once crossed the street to avoid them. But none of it would have happened if not for the girl still standing in the middle of the road, clutching her silver dollar, her heart big enough to quiet a storm. The sun was setting when the engines finally went silent. Maple Hollow smelled of exhaust, rain, and redemption. The streets were littered with sawdust, soda cans, and laughter that didn't quite know if it was allowed to exist yet. Evelyn stood at the diner's doorway, arms crossed, watching the bikers patch the roof of the old church. Kids who once hid behind fences now handed them nails and lemonade. The sheriff, red-faced from embarrassment, had long driven away. It should have felt like victory. Instead, she felt hollow, like her heart had been squeezed too hard. Behind her, the bell above the door chimed. Ryder stepped in, quieter than usual, hat in hand. His jacket was dusty, streaked with grease, his face lined for more than just a day's fight. "You all right?" he asked gently. "I don't know," she admitted. "You brought the world down on my street." He nodded once. "I did, and I'm sorry." She looked at him then, really looked. Beneath the scars and leather, there was something small, wounded, and honest. A man who'd never learned how to say the right things, but meant every one he spoke. Evelyn exhaled. "I don't think you're a bad man, Ryder. But I think the world you come from might break the little bit of peace we've managed to build." He stared at the floor. "That's why I'll leave." The words hit harder than she expected. "Leave." He nodded. "The brothers can finish what they started. I'll make sure they do. But after that, I'd go, before the noise follows me somewhere it doesn't belong." From behind the counter, Amara's small voice cut through the air. "Don't go." They both turned. She stood holding a tray of cups, eyes too wide, too knowing. "You said good people don't run from good things." Ryder crouched down to her height. "Sometimes they do, kid, to keep it safe. But I'm not scared," she whispered. He smiled softly. "You're braver than I ever was." She frowned. "You could stay. Mama doesn't hate you." Evelyn tried to speak, but words failed. The truth sat heavy on her tongue. She didn't hate him. She feared needing him. And that was worse. Ryder rose slowly. "You've got a strong mama. She'll take care of you." Amara shook her head. "You did, too." The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Outside, Diesel approached, wiping his hands on a rag. "Brothers are heading out tomorrow. Town's good. We did what we came to do." Ryder nodded. "You done right." Diesel gave him a look. "You sure about leaving?" "Yeah. Kid's gonna miss you." Ryder's eyes softened. "Yeah, I'll miss her too." Diesel nodded once, then turned away, letting the quiet hold its ground. That night, the town lights flickered back on one by one. Bikers camped on the outskirts, their laughter echoing faintly through the valley. Evelyn stood by her window, watching the shadows move across the fields. She could see Ryder's truck parked by the edge of town, his figure barely visible under the lamplight. She wanted to go out there, to say thank you or goodbye, or maybe both, but fear held her back. Fear of the noise, fear of the change, fear of what she might feel if she reached for him and he didn't stay. Instead, she whispered to Glass, "If you go, at least go knowing you fixed something here." Out in his truck, Ryder sat behind the wheel, engine off, the photograph of his family on the dashboard. He looked at it for a long time, then at the little blue house down the street, where a girl with a silver dollar had taught him how to hope again. He started the truck. The engine coughed, then steadied into a low purr. But he didn't drive away, not yet. He just sat there, headlights off, torn between a road that had always called him and the peace that finally wanted him to stay. Morning broke in gold and silence. The kind of silence that only comes after a storm has emptied everything worth breaking. Maple Hollow glistened like a town reborn. The bikers were already up, packing gear, rolling down tarps, and loading their bikes. The rumble that had terrified the town yesterday now sounded almost like a hymn, a slow, steady heartbeat receding toward the horizon. At the diner, Evelyn poured coffee into chip mugs for the last of the men. They drank politely, thanked her, and one by one shook her hand before heading out. Diesel was the last to go. He paused at the counter and set a folded envelope beside the register. "What's this?" she asked. "For the girl," he said simply, "and for the house. Roof still leaks." When he turned to leave, Evelyn called after him. "Why'd you all come?" "Really?" Diesel smiled faintly. "Because one of us got fed when nobody else would. And because sometimes the roughest men remember the softest things longest." Then he was gone, swallowed by the hum of the engines outside. By noon, only one bike remained, Ryder's. He sat on the tailgate of his truck, helmet beside him, watching the wind play with the dust. His jacket was folded neatly, his phone turned off. He'd said his goodbyes, but his heart hadn't caught up. Amara came running down the gravel path, hair wild in the breeze. "You're still here," she shouted. Ryder smiled, just about to hit the road. She stopped a few steps away, panting. "You can't. Mama made pancakes." He raised an eyebrow. "That a bribe?" "No, a reason." Behind her, Evelyn appeared on the porch, holding 2 plates and an awkward half-smile. "She's persuasive." He laughed softly. "Always was." She handed him the plate. "You can eat before you go. I owe you that much." He took it, warm in his hands. "You don't owe me anything." "Maybe not," she said quietly, "but I want to." They ate in easy silence, the kind that doesn't need filling. Amara sat between them, humming to herself, dipping pancakes in syrup until her fingers were sticky. Ryder pretended not to notice when she wiped them on his sleeve. When the last bite was gone, Evelyn said softly, "I heard what your friend said about your family. I'm sorry." Ryder nodded. We all lose something. What matters is what we build after. She looked at him then, really looked. The weary kindness in his eyes, the way he carried sorrow like a scar he'd made peace with. You've built something here, whether you meant to or not. He smiled faintly. Guess so. Didn't think a diner porch was where I'd find it. Amara tugged on his sleeve. You could stay, help Mama with the porch and teach me to ride when I'm older. Ryder chuckled. Your mama would love that. Evelyn gave a small shrug. Wouldn't hate it. That made him pause. You sure? She met his eyes. I don't scare easy anymore. He stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. I spent half my life running from ghosts. And now, she asked. He glanced at Amara, at the coin still hanging from her neck. Now I think maybe I found home instead. Later that evening, the last of the bikers disappeared down the highway, their engines fading into the sound of cicadas. The town settled back into itself, a little cleaner, a little braver, a little more alive. Ryder stayed. He fixed the roof, helped paint the diner sign, and sometimes just sat with Evelyn on the porch while Mara told stories to the stars. People still stare when they passed, the woman, the child, and the ex-biker with the quiet eyes, but slowly, even that stopped mattering. One night, weeks later, Evelyn found him outside under the same street lamp where he'd first met her daughter. The light caught the silver dollar in his hand, polished now, shining like something reborn. She wanted me to keep it safe, he said. Evelyn stepped closer. You did. He smiled, slipped the coin into her palm, and closed her fingers around it. Then it's home again. She looked up at him. So are you? And for the first time in a long, long while, Ryder believed it. The camera would linger on the porch, Amara's laughter spilling into the night, the hum of a single motorcycle parked by the fence, and the soft golden glow of a diner that had once been just another stop on a forgotten road. Now it was something else entirely. A home, a beginning, a promise kept. Thank you for following this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, please write in a comment where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, as your support is crucial for me to keep creating. Thank you.